Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and it is my absolute pleasure. And I must say, over 800 and what am I up to? I think it's about 885 podcast episodes recorded, not yet all released. But there's only been a very, very small number of people who have made it back 3 times. Now, I don't know whether it's something that is attractive about my voice, the fact that I'm an Australian, or the fact that this is just an all-round good person. And I think it is the latter. I'd like to welcome back for the 3rd time, Dr. Noah St.John. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
It is an honor and a privilege to be here with you again, my friend.
It is a rarity, I must say, because there are so many people that want to jump on the podcast, and I think there's only about 3 people that have made it to 3 episodes.
Wow. Which
is awesome, because, and that's not to say that all the other people that haven't got to that haven't got something relevant to say, but I think it just is a testament to your popularity and the amount of content you've got. So
I'm honored.
Excellent. And today we're going to talk about something a little bit different, although very topical, and that is the world of artificial intelligence. But before we do, no, Dr. Noah, I'm not going to assume that people have listened to the previous podcast, although they should have. But just by way of introduction for people listening, you are the founder of St. John Executive Coaching. You are known worldwide as the Zero Friction Doctor, as well as the father of Afformations. And we talked a lot about Afformations in the last podcast, but also the author of 27 books. And you were just telling me just before we press record that your latest book, which was co-authored with your beautiful wife, called I Ask Better Questions, is your first children's book, and has been number 1 in a number of different categories, having been released a month and a half ago. So congratulations. First question is, what prompted you to write a children's book?
Well, I have written 26 books for adults and on really just even though I've written many books, they've really been about one topic, which is how to take out the head trash that's holding you back. And now, so what I'm doing now, Darren, is I'm really transitioning into doing a lot more corporate work. And what I mean by that is I'm working with sales teams and leaders all around the globe to help them to release what I call the invisible brake. And we can certainly talk a lot more about that. But basically, that the invisible brake is the thing that is happening in so many organizations that is really capping your revenue. So anyway, I've written all these books, and my wife, my beautiful wife, Babette, really has, and now she's a mom and a grandma, so she's, got a family and just is an amazing mom and amazing grandmother. And she said, Noah, you really should write a children's book, because that's a whole nother market that really needs to learn about your Afformations method. And I said, you're right, honey. In fact, every single time that I've ever done any keynote presentation or leadership retreat or workshop anywhere on planet Earth, people will come up to me afterwards and invariably will say, Noah, this needs to be taught in every school in the country. And I would always say, yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
So you're right. But anyway, I was like writing all these other books. So, well, anyway, I finally finished writing my adult books, or books for adults, I should say. And so I've, kind of my desk was cleared. And I said, okay, honey, let's write our children's book. So we did it together. It's so exciting. So, our first collaboration in terms of co-authorship. And as you mentioned, the book is called I Ask Better Questions, and you can go to iaskbetterquestions.com and you can see everything. You can, of course, get the book. But what's really exciting is we've also developed a full curriculum for parents and teachers so that you can teach this in the classroom for teachers. So the one thing that every teacher has said to me over the years is, Noah, can you help me with my lesson plan, right? That's the one thing that every teacher on planet Earth wants, is lesson plans. So I've done that for you, for all the teachers listening. I've created your lesson plan. You can just download it for free on the website. And for parents, what we've done is we've created resources for parents too, so that at the dinner table or when you're getting the kids off to school in the morning, you can literally, there's a poster, for example, and you can say, all right, what's your affirmation for today, Johnny or Susie? And, you can, it's just an amazing way for parents and kids and teachers to really, really encapsulate this work and to make it part of their everyday lives.
I love that. I love that. And and I'm going to make an assumption, which is obviously a dangerous one, but given that most of your work and most of your books have been around about the head trash and helping people take the foot off the brake and put it down on the accelerator, would it be fair to say that this children's book is a children's version of the Afformations method?
Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. Because one of the things that I love about Afformations, my Afformations method, and yes, I know I'm the person that invented them, but I really do love them because they're, number one, they're so simple and easy to use. They're very easy to understand. And so kids love them. I have had so many parents and teachers over the last 3 decades, which is as long as I've been teaching this, to tell me that they taught it to their kids. They heard me speak. They heard me on a podcast. They read one of my books. And they started telling their kids about it, and the kids love it, and the kids started getting better grades. They started having better self-esteem, started believing themselves again, and all these wonderful stories that I've heard. And I said, well, this is what we need to put in this book. And, so that's what it really is. It's really a book that shows different. In fact, there's 5 kids in the book. So the book is about 5 different kids that go through my Afformations method and learn about it. So they were having different issues. For example, one kid was feeling that it was hard to make friends. Another kid was having a fear of leaving home. Another kid was having test anxiety. Another kid was feeling invisible. Things that kids go through. Millions and millions of kids are going through every single day all over planet Earth. And so it's really very universal, the themes that we cover in the book.
I love that. And as you saying that, I'm going to say that there was many adults that are listening to this that have probably gone through or are going through very similar situations.
That's right.
Now, it may not be necessarily the fear of leaving home, but it could be the fear of leaving a role, right? Being held to to an organization that they think, I can't leave because what if I leave and it doesn't work out? So there's a whole host of things. Now, just before, because I want to delve into, there's a couple of things I'd love to talk about, and most of which is the AI component. But for people who perhaps haven't listened to it or don't know about Afformations, because you created this, and I remember you telling me the story last time of a time in a shower, it just popped into your head, and you started to ask different questions. And many people would have heard of the terminology affirmations. I'm going to affirm what's going on. So it's almost casting into the future. Can you just talk a little bit about the basis for affirmations and why they're so powerful as compared to affirmations?
Yes, I actually just did a TEDx talk on this very topic, and it was incredibly well received. The feedback that I got was amazing.
Excellent.
And that's going to be released shortly, so I can't wait for that. But basically, if you've ever read a self-help book, you know what an affirmation is. An affirmation is a statement of something you want to be true. This is what we've been taught for decades, right? I'm happy, I'm rich, I'm successful, and your brain goes, no, you're not. Right? For most people, we just don't. We say the positive statements. We want to believe them, but we just don't believe them. In fact, a scientific study showed that this is actually true, what I'm saying right now, that 3 out of 4 people, 75% of people who use the old affirmations method actually end up more frustrated than before. So imagine if you had a smartphone that didn't work 3 out of the 4 times you went to use it. Probably get a new phone, wouldn't you? Well, that's what I invented, a new phone for your brain, right? So my Afformations method that I invented in the shower in 1997, as you mentioned, is about asking questions, empowering questions. Why am I so happy? Why am I so rich? Why am I always in the right place at the right time? Now, when you start when you start asking these empowering questions, at first your brain's going to go, what are you talking about? What? That's what? It just won't compute really. But what you're doing is rather than trying to force your brain to believe something that you don't believe, instead, you're using the brain's embedded presupposition factor. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying when you ask a question, your brain automatically searches for the answer. So that's the essence of my Afformations method. And the beauty of it is kids get it too. Kids get it. Teenagers, adults, it doesn't matter. In fact, we've had on my Amazon page for the book, if you read it, actually, we had one woman who said, I don't even have kids. I'm 60 years old. I don't have any kids or grandkids. And I love this book. I mean, so it's for everybody. You're right. I mean, you mentioned that a second ago, and it's for everybody. Whether you have kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, doesn't matter. This really works for everybody, and the reason is very simple. Every human being on planet Earth is already using my Afformations method. There's only two problems, though. The first is that you don't know you're doing it, right? Most people don't know they're doing this. And number two is most people are asking really disempowering questions. For example, why am I so stupid? Why am I so fat? Why can't I lose weight? Why isn't my business growing? Why can't I get more sales? Why is there always more month left at the end of the money? Hmm. And when you ask lousy questions, what do you get? Well, you get lousy answers, and that creates a lousy life. So now, using my Afformations method, for the first time in human history, we can take conscious control of the questions we're asking, change the questions, change our habits, change our results, and thereby change our lives.
And that's a really interesting point. You mentioned that people are using this and have probably used it for generations, but it's a disempowering. And just
Yes.
thinking about it myself, I've been through that and continue to go through that. In fact, I have to catch myself just about every day. Why is this? Why is this happening to me?
Right.
Why can't I get on that particular podcast? Why doesn't that one person want to
Right.
talk to me? And what
Yeah.
it does, it actually forces you to start considering the answers, which is a
Yes.
slippery slope down to
Yes.
disempowering thoughts and obviously not where you want to be.
That's
So
right.
flipping that, it's a case of, well, why am I so successful? Why am I in a
Right.
position where people are falling over themselves to want to talk to me on this particular podcast?
That's
And it
right.
forces you to
That's
start
right.
looking for a different answer.
That's exactly right. Now, what I do want to mention for all the adults in the room is that my Afformations method, as powerful and frankly life-changing as it is, which it is still only one of what I call the power habits system. Now, I
Mm.
do talk about this in my books like Power Habits or
Yep.
my Power Habits Academy online courses and coaching. And this is, what a lot of companies and sales teams bring me in is to help them to install these power habits. So the full title is The Power Habits of Unconsciously Successful People. Now, that sounds like a mouthful, but it's actually very simple. And what I mean by that is that what I discovered 3 decades ago is that highly successful people are doing things unconsciously that they don't even know they're doing. And
Mm.
therefore, they can't teach it to you.
Yeah.
So you could sit there and, we've all heard this a million times. Well, if you want to be more successful, just talk to a successful person and do what they do. Well, no, duh, but here's the problem. They're unconscious. They don't know
That's
what
right.
they did. I'll give you a beautiful example of this. Okay, perfect example. Now, I am a sucky golfer. I mean, I really suck at golf, but I enjoy it, but not really because I'm so bad at it. Now, years ago, my wife, my beautiful wife, said, she wanted to get me golf lessons because she saw that I sucked. And so I said, thanks, honey. And so, I would go out on on the tee on the golf range, and I would just be hitting the ball, and it just, every single shot was just garbage, blah, blah, worm burner, nothing, it was awful. And she literally said to me, "Well, why don't you go out and practice more?" I said, "Honey, I'm just practicing the wrong thing. I mean, this isn't going to help me. You're just doing it wrong." So I remember one time, and this is true, because I'm out there and just totally sucking. And there's this
Yeah.
guy over, a couple feet away, and he's just bombing it out there, just 300 yards, blah, blah. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So I went up to him and I said, wow, that's really impressive. How do you do that? He goes, well, you just grip it and rip it. And
Just,
I'm like,
that's
thanks, buddy.
helpful.
So helpful. Now, in all fairness, he didn't know me anything. I didn't pay him. So, okay, you're not going to give me any good advice, but still, the reason that I'm sharing that is, isn't it true that's what most gurus do? And
Yeah.
even when you pay them the money, they
Just
say,
do
oh,
it.
just grip it and rip it. I'm like, I'm going to punch you in the face right now. I mean, seriously, are you kidding me? I paid you $20,000. You told me grip it and rip it. And we've all experienced that, haven't we? We've all experienced. We pay the guy the money, and he just,
Yeah.
what the heck was that?
Yeah.
So anyway, so then what happened was, then my wife bought me, from a real golf coach. Like she paid the money and as a birthday present, which was very sweet. And so thank
Hmm.
you. So I went and we paid the money for this coach. And so he goes, so he did the thing which a great coach is supposed to do. He goes, show me your swing. So I showed him my swing, and it was just garbage, right? He goes, so he said, and I swear to God this is true. He said, well, no, you need to open up your club face. And I said, what's a club face? And he said, that would be the face of the club. Club face. I go, oh, really? Okay. So I never heard of that. I'm like, oh, club face. That makes sense. So I opened the club face and I'm like, oh my God, what is there? Wow, that's never happened. I'm like, oh, I can kiss you. But you see what I mean? That's the point of the story. When you get a good coach that knows what the heck they're talking about and they can see, where
Yeah.
you're stuck or where you're struggling, it can make all the difference. That's the point of the story.
It's like I love that. What's the club face? It reminds me of the coach John Wooden that would always at the beginning of every season say to his team, "This is a basketball," right?
That's
And
right.
such a
Exactly.
foundational and fundamental thing.
Yes.
But what it says is never make any assumptions.
That's right.
Um,
Exactly.
and how many of us, particularly as adults, do make those assumptions because we've got this presupposition that everybody knows
Yes.
what we know, and that is not necessarily the case.
No, no, not at all. And so that's why it takes a good and so that's really one of the reasons I've helped my clients make over $3 billion since 1997 because I do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I look beneath the surface,
Mm.
and at 100% of people who hire me have tried, those guys and they who say grip it and rip it, and they're very frustrated. And frankly, they're very skeptical as well.
Yes.
They should be. I think we've all been burned by those guys at this point,
Mm.
because let's face it, they're really great self-promoters. They're
Mm.
they're great self-marketers and they got a big following on social media. So you go, well, of course, if they're successful, then of course they could help me be successful. But the
Yeah.
problem is very simple and it's right in front of our face and everybody's missing it. And that
Mm.
is there's an enormous chasm between being a great self-promoter and a great coach.
Yeah.
Those two things usually are polar opposites. They just
Yeah.
are. And I mean, if you haven't seen that by now, for the folks listening to this program, you will see it soon. Okay. So, my hope, frankly, with saying this and sharing this information is to save people all the pain, torment, and agony that I had to go through paying all these clowns all that money only to find out there's no there.
And they're still out there. But it's so
Yes.
true that what you say that people who are at the top of their game in any field, if you sat down and actually asked them the strategy that they used in order to get the results so they can replicate it, many of them would not have any idea as to how they do
No.
it, to break it down.
They're
The
they're
ones
they're
that
they're
can,
unconscious, as I call it.
yeah,
They're just unconscious, which I mean, frankly, is a testament to them. It's a positive thing for them, but doesn't help the
mm,
rest of us.
no,
It's
that's
like,
right.
especially when you're paying them, and it's like grip it and rip it. That doesn't help.
But if you've got a golf coach as an example that can actually
Yes,
understand the mechanics of the swing and
yes,
can understand and break a strategy down into small pieces, then you can
yes.
focus on one element and you can make incremental improvements over a period of time
That's
to the
right.
point where maybe eventually through practice and repetition you can also get to a point where you are unconsciously competent as well.
Yes, exactly.
The difference will be you'll be able to articulate to another person as to how you've actually done it, so they
Right.
might actually benefit from the same coaching, even though you probably charge them more than a professional golf coach.
Well, I mean, let's face it, I'm getting results in the millions and sometimes tens of millions of dollars or more. In fact, I'll give you a perfect example of this. I was speaking at a seminar in Los Angeles for 1,000 business owners. These are 7, 8, and even 9-figure CEOs, founders, very successful group.
Yeah.
And I was just walking off the stage. I just finished speaking. A man came up to me out of the audience and he said, Noah, I want to hire you as my coach. You are the coach I've been looking for. Now, I didn't know this man from Adam. Ironically, his
Mhm.
name was Adam.
Adam.
And true story, right? And he said to me, Noah, I am a founder of this company. We're at 7 figures, but we've been stuck at the same level for the past 4 years
Hmm.
and we can't grow. And he said, I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on all these gurus, all these marketing guys out there. He named all the big names. And he said, they just keep saying the same thing, and we haven't grown. We just keep hitting that revenue ceiling. And he said, as soon as I heard you speak, I knew you were the coach I've been looking for. So he literally decided to hire me on the spot. That's why I love working with high achievers, right? They make
Yeah.
decisions quickly and firmly. They don't dilly dally. Don't, oh, I got to think about it. They just, boom, let's go.
Yeah.
So I coached him and his leadership team for 18 months. Now, in that 18 months, We got his company that had been stuck, plateaued for the previous 4 years to over 20 million. That's a 600% increase in 18 months. Now, think about this for everyone listening. Most founders, CEOs, entrepreneurs would be thrilled with a 10% increase. At 15%, you're popping the champagne. We got him 600% in 18 months. Okay, and he ended up selling that company for a huge payout. So what's the moral of the story? The point of the story is that everybody who, he had paid all that money to was talking about the outer game stuff, the marketing, the sales, all of that stuff, which you have to do. But I was the only coach that talked to him about the inner game, as I mentioned a moment ago, the invisible break, as I call it.
Yeah.
Because for everyone listening, I want you to think about this. Every problem that you're facing in your business right now is a friction problem. And that's why you need a zero friction solution. And that's why they call me the zero friction doctor. Because think about this. Friction is the enemy of velocity. All right. Just think about your car. Think about your car, right? Your car is a vehicle to get you to where you want to go faster. Well, that's what your business is. Your business is a vehicle, right? It's supposed to give you, I don't know, what's it called again? Money, right? It's supposed to give you that thing called money, profit. All right. That's what we're in business for last time I checked. All right. But, of course, to help people and make the world a better place, but money. Okay. So both of those things, I hope. But the point is that so many business owners, founders, entrepreneurs, sales professionals are driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake. So like with Adam and with, frankly, all of the clients that I've coached over the last 30 years, they have what I call the invisible brake. The invisible brake are the invisible things, the hidden things, the things that aren't obvious. Because if you're talking to somebody that's at 7 figures a year, you're like, well, he can't have any problems. I mean, he's got to be just, everything's perfect. And he is going, this is not it. This is good, but it's not great. And I could do so much better. Do you see what I mean? So for everyone, the invisible break is different. So whether you're at 6 figures, 7, 8 figures, doesn't matter. There's still invisible breaks that are probably there. And just like driving in your car, you can put your foot on the gas as much as you want. But if your other foot's on the brake at the same time, you're not going to reach your goals.
Yep.
So that's why removing the invisible brake is, in fact, the secret of success.
Yeah. I love that. And Afformations is a part of that in terms of one of the power habits.
That's right.
Absolutely love that. I do want to talk to you about AI because I know you've dabbled in AI, and after we did our last podcast, we talked about how do we come back and talk about how do we become irreplaceable in the world of AI, where a lot of organizations, if not most organizations, are dabbling in AI and some are going full on in AI. And there are people out there that will be concerned about the impact that it will have on them, their organizations and people and so forth. Can you talk from the world that you dabble in, that you work in, and you work with some pretty high achievers, as you just talked about. What's the general feeling around this thing called AI, and is it something that is filling people with enthusiasm, optimism, or there's a little bit of anxiety that's associated with it?
Okay, so let me back up and give people the 30,000-foot view for context, and then we'll really focus in. So I started my company, successclinic.com, in a 300 square foot basement apartment in Massachusetts with $800 to my name and a book on HTML. So I had nothing. I had no money, no skills, no marketing, no sales, no business experience whatsoever. All I had was one thing that I know everyone listening to this program also has, and that is a deep burning desire to make a difference, to make an impact, to help people, right? And yes, to make money too. Okay, but that was always secondary for me. It was always to make a difference, to make an impact. And I know that's your listeners too. So the point is that I started in 1997, right at the beginning of the internet revolution, right? As the internet was becoming a thing. Prior to that, it was like, what's the internet? Nobody ever heard of it, right? So, I was on the first wave of that, the internet revolution. Well, the internet revolution took about 20 years to hit its peak, right? And of course, we've all been living with it for the last 3 decades or so. So it took about 20 years. Well, the AI revolution took about 20 months. All right. So if you think about it, it is accelerated by a factor of 10x at least.
Mm.
Okay. So everything is getting condensed, number one. So that's point number one. And that's why I wanted to bring up the context to give people
Yeah.
that, that big picture. Now, let's boil it down. This is how I coach people. This is how I work. This is how I give my keynote speeches, my leadership retreats. We start with the big picture and then we drill down. So the big picture is very simple. There are two factors at work here when we talk about this revolution, just like, frankly, any revolution. The mechanical revolution, the industrial
Hmm.
revolution. Go back to any revolution in human history you want. This is just the latest one, right? So the two forces that are always at work are fear and greed.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Human fear and human greed. All right. And I mean, it sounds like terrible when I say that, but sorry, that's it. All right. We're dealing with human fear and human greed. All right. So let's talk about the AI revolution. So, human greed. We start with greed because everything starts with greed. Again, I hate
Mm.
saying that, but there's no way around it. So, with greed, you have the companies that are saying this. Let's see. We've got these robots that work 24/7, don't take time off, don't take vacations, don't need medical. I don't have to feed them. They never complain. Yeah, that sounds pretty good because the other side is these annoying thing called humans, which are really a pain. Let's face it. So there's the greed, right? For the corporation, the CEO, they're
Yeah.
like, wow. In fact, this just happened. Talk about ripped from the headlines. Jack Dorsey, who was the founder of Twitter, now has a company called Block. He just laid off 4,000 of his employees because of AI, and their stock went up 35% in one day.
Wow.
Okay, because the now Wall Street is saying, yeah, we don't need humans. Get them out of here. So, okay, so there's greed. Well, now we go to human fear.
Mm.
Now, that is, of course, the precise other side of the coin, because what about those 4,000 humans, right? So every single day, 400, according to the sources that I have my finger on the pulse of this, 491 people lost their jobs today with AI because of AI. Another 491 tomorrow. And let's face it, that number is just going to keep climbing and going up every single day.
Mm.
So the phrase that is tossed around right now is you will not be replaced by AI, but you will be replaced by someone who has mastered AI. And
Mm.
that is probably true, but it's probably a little of both. Yeah, you are going to be replaced by AI too.
Yeah.
And I mean, the fact is, this is just happening everywhere because of what I just said. You've got the greed, which says, gee, I'd like to make more profit. How about we fire the humans that are really a pain? And then fear, which is, how am I going to feed my family?
Mm.
I'm one of those humans, Noah. I'm one of the humans that just got laid off. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So that is why, my company, successclinic.com, we are very, very invested, just like we were with the internet revolution 30 years ago when it was just little old me in my in my basement apartment. Well, now we're very invested in the AI revolution. And so my team and I have actually built quite a few tools to help people with this new revolution, the AI revolution.
It's interesting you talk about that, the fear and greed, and the people that I talk to often, and depending on where they sit in the ecosystem in terms of their leadership, they're talking a lot about the fact that for themselves, with so many companies using AI to reach out, to interact, to try and get them to be self-serving,
Hmm.
what they're craving for is more and more human interaction.
That's right.
So there was a
Exactly.
person yesterday I was speaking to that she was talking about this human intelligence to combat artificial intelligence.
Right.
And interestingly, I had an example last week where an executive at a big tech company was talking about how they had received 23 personalized
Mm.
LinkedIn messages and emails that had been written by AI,
Hmm.
but there was no human interaction. And the
Hmm.
24th person that reached out did it via making a phone call. And guess who the person chose? She chose
Right.
that person.
Right.
So I'll be
That's
interested
right.
in your take on this with the proliferation and so much greed happening and fear that is a byproduct of that.
Hmm.
What are you seeing in terms of people wanting to crave more of the human interaction, still utilizing AI, but not completely removing the human
Hmm.
interaction from what we're doing?
Yeah, it's a really great point, something we talk about every single day here, and with the companies that I coach and that I, consult for. So that goes back to an ancient saying, ancient in terms of internet, which is 20 years or so, which is high tech, high touch, right?
Yeah.
High tech, high touch. So yes, I think the companies that are going to succeed in this AI revolution or through it are going to be the ones that install high tech and high touch. And
Mm.
let's again pull back the curtain a little bit. We humans are social organisms. We're social creatures. We're social animals.
Yeah.
All right. We have been social animals for 100,000 years or so.
Yeah.
We have tribes. And if, back in caveman days, the worst punishment was not death, but it was banishment from the tribe.
Mm.
When there were crimes that were really heinous, well, they would banish that person from the tribe, not kill them, would
Yeah.
banish them because they knew that actually banishment in many cases is worse than death.
Yes.
So that we haven't lost that, we humans. We still have that caveman brain up there. And so we crave that human interaction, and of course that's not going to change at all. So going back to my point of greed and fear, from the greed aspect, just wanting to have as much profit as possible. Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to install automations, well, I mean that's actually good. That is an example of taking the invisible brake off. But at the
Mm.
same time, you do need to realize, well, where do I need that human interaction? There will be, I mean, for the foreseeable future, there just are things that AI cannot do, cannot replicate. And the funny thing about that, if I may say, and I've said this on many podcasts now and in my keynote speeches, which is artificial intelligence itself is a total misnomer. It is not intelligent. It
Mm.
is artificial synthesis.
Mm.
So all that AI does, when we talk about the LLMs, the five main ones are ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, and Perplexity. Those are the five main
Yeah.
LLMs, large language models. Of course, there's many, many others, but those are the five main ones. Well, what they do, all they do really, is when you ask a question or when you put in a prompt, all they do is scour the internet and then assemble stuff. So they're
Mm.
synthesizing. They're not actually thinking, and not yet. I mean, maybe they will.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably. But at this moment, they don't think, they assemble, they synthesize. But see, that's not a sexy term. Artificial synthesis, nobody would ever say that. So they say artificial intelligence. But I'm telling you, everybody listening, that's wrong. That's not intelligent, right? So far, we humans are the only, creatures that can come up with stuff. Again, will
Mm.
that change? Yeah, probably. Probably, certainly at the rate this thing's going. Yeah. But at the moment, we still do need that human interaction for that reason.
It's part of it is frightening, Noah, because I was
Yes.
talking to a person a couple of weeks ago who runs an AI company and says they have to change things literally every 5 days because
Yeah.
the whole
Yes.
AI world
Yes. Yes.
literally replicates and expands and doubles every five
That's
days,
right.
which, you're
Yes.
talking about the internet taking 20 years to really take hold and AI has taken 20 months. It's
Hmm.
just getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And I
Yes.
think that's where fear really comes into it because there'll be
Yes.
people thinking about, well, forget about the invisible break. I've got a really visible break here, and I can see that this is going to potentially impact my job. So they go into
Yes.
the fear and
Yes.
protection mode, which begs the
Right.
question then, and all the work that you're doing and the people and the organizations you're talking to, a question, this is where Afformations comes into it again, and that is presupposing that we can become functional and irreplaceable in the world of AI. And how do we do that? So, what are some things that humans can think about, and particularly business owners and sales leaders and salespeople, that you can leverage AI but still keep the human element? So,
Yes.
what potentially is going to make us irreplaceable?
So going back to my point about friction is the enemy of velocity. So one of the things that I coach my clients on, whether it's, in leadership retreats or one-on-one
Mm.
coaching or group coaching or just, keynotes, is identify the friction. Where is the friction? Now, here's the problem with that. And right off the bat, I tell you the problem. And that is no sales leader, business owner, entrepreneur, founder wakes up in the morning and goes, gee, I really should remove the friction in my company today. I really should remove the friction in my team today. But you should. You should do that. You're not doing
Yes.
it, but you should do that because of what I just said. But see, this is one of the reasons I've helped people make so much money is because I do come at it at a different way. Because what does every, business owner do? They say, oh, I need more customers.
Mm.
I need more clients. I got to do more ads. I gotta do SEO, whatever. So they're up here at like the symptom. All of those are symptoms. They're not
Mm.
wrong. It's not wrong what you're saying. It's
Yeah.
just you've got to look beneath it. So what is the friction? What's the friction point? Okay, so that's the first thing we really need to do. And by the way, that's why when you go to my website, we do have an invisible break audit, and we actually show you where the friction is in your business, in
Hmm.
your team. We show you that. So right on the website, it's right there on the front on the homepage. Okay, but anyway, so we look at that and we call it the invisible break audit. Where is the friction? All right. So if you look at going back to Jay Abraham's classic, the three ways to grow a business. What are the three ways to grow a business? Well, number one, get more customers. Duh. Everybody knows that. Number two, get every customer to spend more or get the average order value up. And third is increase the frequency.
Mm.
Okay. Well, guess what? At every single one of those steps, there's friction.
Mm.
So that's what you need to do as the leader. Where's the friction in my customer acquisition journey? Where's the friction? And guess what? There's always friction.
Yeah.
All right. So what are you going to do today to remove the friction? Number two, where's the friction in my average order value? How can we, do provide more value to our customers so that they want to and do buy more? All right. This
Mm.
is the classic McDonald's. You want fries with that.
Yeah.
Hello. Why do you think they said that? Because fries are, what, 10 times more profitable than a hamburger?
Yeah.
And that's, the fries is what makes McDonald's profitable. Okay. You want fries
Uh,
with that. So for everyone listening, what's your fries?
mm.
And then the third one is how do we get them to come back more? And, how do we get them to increase the frequency of purchase? Where's the friction there? So do you see at every single stage, there is friction that must be removed. That's why we have the invisible break audit. Now, what's fascinating is I just talked about the outer game. Everything I just said was outer game. And that's where everybody's focused, and they need to be focused. But guess
Mm.
what? You've also got inner friction.
Mm.
Going back to my Adam story that I told earlier, it was all inner friction.
Mm.
That's why I was able to get his company from 4 million that had been stuck for years to over 20 million in 18 months. We really, and of course, this was before AI. We didn't even have AI to worry about back then. This was before AI, but still, the lesson still holds. It was his inner friction, his head
Mm.
trash, as I call it, right? But the invisible break inside. So the fact is, and I know it sucks, but you have to do both. You have to eliminate the inner friction as well as the outer friction. And guess what? That's why people bring me in to help you with
Mm.
that. I
Mm.
do that. That's what I've been doing for 30 years. That's why I've helped my clients make $3 billion.
And so in that realm, so you do an analysis of where you're at in terms of the
Yes.
friction, and then you start about the internal stuff.
Yes.
Um, AI then is a completely, I guess, a different beast because it overlays absolutely everything. And
Yeah.
there
Yes.
are there are companies that are probably looking at AI to say, well, how can we remove a lot of the friction? How can we make it easier for our customers to do business with us? How can it
Yes.
make it be easier for us to go to market, to do the marketing, to do the interaction? Um, and how do we best leverage that so that
Yep.
we still have customers that want to do business
Right.
with us, not doing business necessarily with a bot?
Right. Well, let me give you a perfect example. So this is something that my company is doing right now. So we're providing this as a service, and that is, we call it reply first.
Hmm.
Okay. And the point is that let's say you are a dentist or an orthodontist or an HVAC, person
Yeah.
that, a local business, right? Any type of local business, maybe a pet grooming shop, something like that, right? And what do you have? You have people that answer the phone. They need to make an appointment, right? So customers call you or prospective customers, right? So a dentist would have patients, so would call. Well, what if that person calls you at 10 o'clock at night? Well, there's no human that's going to be there at 10 o'clock at night, probably.
Mm.
Maybe you have an answering service and that's great. But what if you had an AI that if once they call and they hang up and they don't leave a message, they get a call back or a text message, an SMS right back in 60 seconds. It says, hey, we saw you just called ABC Dental. Would you like to make an appointment? And and the person goes, oh yeah, well that's why I was calling. So you just tap the button on your phone and boom, you tap the link, you make your appointment, boom. So you see what I just did? I just eliminated friction. So we're literally doing that. That's one example of what we are doing. We're providing that service to local businesses. Now, for, a larger business, how can you expand that? How can you use AI in that sense? So maybe you don't have people missing phone calls, but maybe there's always going to be some kind of sales that are happening.
Mm.
Well, is that going to be a human? But maybe the AI can be the setter, and then you have a human be the closer, right? So
Mm.
there's lots and lots of ways to do this. The important thing is to start imagining, start using your brain, start using your imagination, and let's face it, using the tools that we have available to us now that we just didn't even have 5 years ago.
And so with that, if you look at that, because there'll be a lot of people that'll take the fear element. So when they see AI, they'll say, "Oh my God, there's so much technology.
Yes,
I can see that they're not going to need me in this organization." So how can we use things like the power habits and affirmations to start thinking about, how can I differentiate? How can I be still relevant and valuable, not just to my organization, but to my customers, and best leverage AI? And it might be that there'll be elements of what I currently do today that I can outsource to AI, but there'll be stuff that AI can't do necessarily right
that's
now,
right.
such as
Well,
think for
so
itself and empathize.
yes, yes. So for the sales professionals listening to this program right now, how can you be irreplaceable?
Mm,
And that's literally what I'm teaching is how to be the leader that refuses to be replaced by AI.
mm.
Right? Because you could make the argument that anybody at this point could be replaced by AI. You could make that argument. I don't agree with that, but you could say, well, who needs humans anymore? Who needs people? Well, let's say you have a car dealership. I mean, are you really going to have robots walking around? Not right now. Maybe in 5 years you will. Maybe you
Elon
will.
probably
I mean,
wants
I don't
that to
know.
happen.
I'm not, I'm not going to sit here and say it'll never happen because we don't know what's going to happen. We just don't know. I mean, nobody could have predicted this 5 years ago. What we're experiencing right now.
Yeah.
But my point is that how are you equipping those salespeople to utilize the tools that exist today? Now, I talked a moment ago about the five main LLMs, right? ChatGPT, Claude, Grok,
Mm.
Gemini, and Perplexity. So those aren't going anywhere. I mean, not for the foreseeable future. These are multi-billion-dollar companies.
Yeah.
And so I would say for everyone who's feeling the fear, you absolutely must become conversant, if not master all of these. You at least have to become conversant. You have to get on there. And it can be free. It can be the free plan. You don't have to even spend any money, let's face it.
Mm.
Right? They all have a free plan. So most people right now are on OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, but fascinatingly, OpenAI just did, at the time of this recording, they just did a deal with the Pentagon. And right now, their stock went down 88% in one day because they did that deal with the Pentagon here in the United States. And so basically, what they did was they said, yeah, you can just spy on Americans, and that's fine. And a lot of Americans said, that's funny. We don't want
That's
to be
not
spied on.
fine.
So goodbye. And they went over to Anthropic, which is Claude. And because Claude was about to do the deal with the Pentagon, they were about to do this. And the leaders of Anthropic said, you know what? We don't, no. How about no? We don't feel like spying on, and we don't feel like giving you permission to spy on our customers. And everybody would say, wow, thanks a lot, Anthropic. Yeah, I think we'll go over to Claude. So, I mean, you see what I mean? Crazy stuff like that keeps happening. But nevertheless, for everyone listening, what does this mean for you? You really do have to learn the five main ones that I talked about. You just have to at least be conversant with it. Now, the ones that I use the most are Claude and Gemini. I actually don't use ChatGPT that much anymore
Mhm.
because I have found that it's really gotten left behind. Claude and Gemini have really made enormous leaps just in the last few months. You mentioned that everything changes every 5 days. So that's actually a variation of Moore's law going
Yeah.
back, many, many years to the computing age. Talk about the computer revolution, right? That was the revolution before the internet revolution, was the PC, the personal computer revolution. And Moore's law states that computing speed doubles every 18 months. Well,
Mm.
clearly we're doubling every, what, 5 days,
5 days.
apparently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, my point is that for everyone listening, yeah, you've got to, and by the way, this, going to your point, Darren, yes, this absolutely does reflect my power habits that I talked about earlier. You cannot succumb to the fear. Now that's easier said than done, of course, just like most things are. But, once people really understand the power habits and how they really work, you you don't really need to succumb to that fear anymore. Fear is
Mm,
always going to be there because fear just basically states, what if I lose what I have? That's really
mm,
what fear is. What if I lose what I have? What if I lose my home? What if I lose my family? What if I lose my health? What if I lose my money? These are all
mm.
things that we fear, that we humans have feared for
Yeah.
centuries. Losing what we have. Well, if you're always focused on what you're going to lose, it's like you're driving down the road by looking in the rear view mirror. You can't do that. You've got to look just what's right in front of you. So just take it
Yeah.
one step at a time. Probably, yeah. Do you need coaching? Sure. You can reach out to us, whatever you need to do. Get the support you need, but the
Mm.
tools are there and the human support is there. You just have to ask for it.
And I think that's the most important point that and it comes back to your brand new book, I Ask Better Questions, and that is if we can start asking better questions of ourselves and about our environment, but use those questions that are tainted with and not tainted, that are highly optimistic and forward
Yes.
focusing, glass half full growth mindset, then you're going to start looking for evidence to support, hey, I am going to be irreplaceable because the presupposition is I am irreplaceable. So you're now going to start searching for evidence to support that thesis versus,
Yes.
oh my God, I'm so fearful. What if I lose this? What if I lose that? And if you start to
Right.
put your energy towards that, guess what? Where your energy is going to go, that's where the focus goes. And that's where you're going to find evidence to support what you believe to be true, and it has
Correct.
a manner of manifesting. So
That's right.
I guess the key summary of this conversation around AI, from my perspective, and love your take on it, is
Hmm.
yes, there is a world of uncertainty, but if you think about the world has been uncertain for many years, and who would have thought this time last week that we would be having a war with Iran, and things are getting blown up left, right, and center. But we
Yeah.
have the power to think and we have the power to
Yes.
create. And if you think that the world of AI is going to replace you, then you may actually be true. But if
Mm.
you take a different tact, then you can start to create your own reality. And if you then infiltrate all of that with some of the power habits that you talk about, then you're going to be well positioned to take advantage of whatever's going to be thrown at us into the future.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So my job for 30 years has always been one thing, and that is to empower people. I love that word empower. And the reason I love that word is because, well, of course, my teaching is called Power Habits, which has the word power in it. But what I mean by power is the power within us. The
Mm,
power is within you. And one message that I've been teaching for many, many years now is you have much more power than you think. But if you're using your mind in the wrong way, you're going to get results that really aren't very good.
yeah.
So my job is to help you unlock what's already in there. We're not adding anything,
Mm,
and you're not broken. It's
yeah.
just unlocking the things that are already in there and frankly releasing the invisible brake that
Mm.
up until now has probably been holding you back. And so, using these power habits, getting your foot off the brake is really, really powerful and empowering, and that makes me very happy.
And it takes work. And let's
Yes.
not because if we go back to when was it? I think 2005, 2006, when The Secret was released, and they were talking about manifest this and power of positive thinking, a law of attraction, which is, by the way, a universal law, but it's a secondary law. But what
Mhm.
that particular movie and book forgot to mention, or maybe chose not to mention, was
Yeah.
the fact that you had to do some work. You had
Yeah.
to take
They
some
they
action.
left it out on purpose. Yeah. Because that wouldn't sell so many DVDs if it said, oh, by the way, you got to work. What?
You
Shut that
got
up.
to
Get
work
out of
your
here.
ass off.
No, no, no. I want magic. I think about money and money pours in from the sky. I think about a car and it appears in my driveway. Come on. What's wrong with you?
Oh,
Yeah. That was fun. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I mean, back then I had so many people say, no, I watched The Secret 37 times and how come I still haven't won the lottery? And, I'd go face plant. It's like, yeah, okay, come here and let me explain mathematics to you, if I may. It's anyway, it's
so
pretty
it's
funny.
uh it's interesting. So
Yeah.
looking forward into 2026 and
Mhm.
2027.
Yep.
What excites you about the next 12 months or so?
Geez. I mean, I love these. I love the tools that, we're providing to our clients. I just talked about that, the reply first, and I am very excited about our new book, the children's book. I Ask Better Questions. Again, that is the website, iaskbetterquestions.com. And I mentioned this to you before we got on the air.
Mm.
We did hit #1 on Amazon on 2 different categories, and we even beat James Patterson. Who is one of the world's best-selling authors, and I even have a screenshot to prove it. I was like, "Oh my God, we beat James Patterson!" And some people don't know who James Patterson is, but a lot of people do. So I was like, "Wow,
They
that was
do.
an exciting day for me as an author." But anyway, so yeah, that's really exciting, and to be able to share this with parents, teachers, and kids, have the curriculum that I talked about earlier. We have created a student resilience program, a
Hmm.
student resilience initiative to help kids, parents, and teachers with kids' mental health, and resilience. I mean, I argue that's really the #1 problem that kids are facing today is
Yeah.
mental health and resilience. And I
Yeah.
mean, this plays out everywhere. It just plays out everywhere. And so honestly, I'm just excited to, do what I do. And it's a privilege to talk with great people like you every day.
No, I appreciate that. And I think having a book like this in the hands of children, and I think back to a guy called Dr. Mark Brackett, who's been doing lots of work around emotional intelligence and putting emotional intelligence programs into
Mm.
schools, particularly in the UK, to teach kids to recognize emotions, to embrace emotions, to be able to language their emotions. But if you then throw in the ability for them to ask better questions, it
Mm.
cannot but improve the mental
Mm.
health, I guess, pandemic that exists, not just
Yeah,
in children,
yeah,
but right through to adulthood. So
that's for sure.
kudos to you, my friend, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
So for people
Thank you.
who are listening to this and want to get more of Dr. Noah, the zero friction doctor, where's the best place for them to connect?
Go to noahstjohn.com. That's my name. So just like it sounds, NoahStJohn, noahstjohn.com. And right there, make sure you get your Invisible Break scorecard. It's free. It's right there on the homepage. Just say, get my scorecard. And you just answer 12 questions, and you'll get instantly the results of the Invisible Break. And you'll see, like, where is the Invisible Break happening in your life, in your team, in your organization.
Yeah.
And then you want to book an Invisible Break audit. And that is a 15-minute call with me, which is free. It's complimentary. And I will walk you through exactly where the invisible break is stalling you, is capping your revenue, capping your productivity. Again, this can be on a personal level or on a team level or an organizational level. I mean, it
Yeah.
affects everything. Remember, the break is always there. We just got
Mm.
to identify it and then systematically remove the friction. So right there, noahstjohn.com. And of course, you can see all my different books and courses and all things like that. And oh, by the way, if you want to bring me in to speak for your company, your team, your organization, just go to booknoah.com. It's easy to remember. Who should we book? Booknoah.com. Easy to remember.
Love that. Well, no, I'll put all that in the show notes, and
Thank you.
it's such a privilege to have you back for the third time on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. Keep up the phenomenal work, and yeah, it's been great talking to you again.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com, and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.